This reminds me of walking into the cafeteria back in school. Everybody's looking at you, nobody wants you there, and this is Kim Kardashian. And I love the short hair look. I don't necessarily love it here. Maybe it's because it's like a little greasy looking. It looks a little like heavy and sticky. I mean, it's giving wig. We all know it's a wig, right? It's giving full-blown wig.
Okay, stop scrolling. Kim Kardashian just walked into Paris Fashion Week like it was a chess move, and the board is now on fire. Cameras flashed, timelines exploded, and within an hour, everyone with an opinion was comparing her new look to Kanye's current wife, Bianca Censori. This is not a fashion column. It's a wardrobe war with receipts, and we're diving in. Gloves off. Let's not pretend this came out of nowhere. Kim has been reinventing herself in public for years, trading reality star gloss for something sharper, stranger, more tactical. The look she debuted in Paris, a vintage Maison Margiela tube top so sheer it could have been a dare, paired with that cropped Kris Jenner-evoking haircut, was like a statement and a question mark rolled into one. It read as archival couture and modern stunt at the same time. Old school Margiela, new school headline magnet. Fans and outlets immediately started triangulating meaning from pixels, as if a single outfit could settle narratives that have been simmering for a decade. It helps to remember the cast here. On one side, you have Kim, a media ecosystem unto herself, billionaire brand architect, reality shows living legend, and the woman whose every aesthetic pivot ripples through streetwear, lingerie, and the beauty industrial complex. On the other side, you have Bianca Censori, who arrived into the spotlight via Kanye, then multiplied the public's curiosity with a wardrobe that prizes barely their silhouettes and a willingness to court scandal. People love to triangulate the players because it simplifies complicated histories into a neat drama. Ex-lover, new partner, public rival. But that simplification is also what fuels viral outrage and sold-out drops. When photos of Kim leaving the Ritz in her Margiela set surfaced, social feeds almost immediately lit up with copycats, critics, and theorists. Was she riffing on Bianca's aesthetic? Channeling her mom? Offering a wink to Kanye's aesthetic past? All of the above, probably. Fashion, these days, is both homage and appropriation, and celebrities weaponize references. Kim's Margiela look, the sheer bandeau, the trompe-l'oeil mini, the silver arm cuff, read to some as a tidy nod to the skin-bearing energy Bianca has cultivated, and to others as a power move intended to reclaim or redirect the public's gaze. One reads it as mimicry, the other as mastery. There's an itch in the coverage that's as old as celebrity gossip. Comparison converts complicated human beings into characters. That itch turned into criticism on more international corners of the internet, where commentators accused Kim of leaning into a look that, until recently, had been coded to Bianca. The backlash was predictable because in the court of online opinion, similarity is often treated as theft. But similarity in fashion is more like dialects. Shared words in a language everyone is speaking, and yet people still scramble to assign ownership. Context matters. Who wore it first? Who monetized it? Who gets praise versus who gets scorn? Those are not neutral facts. They're power dynamics. Let's unpack context. Kanye West's public rupture with the Kardashians has been messy, prolonged, and thoroughly mediatized. From public rants to social media feuds, the relationship between Kanye and the family has been a storyline with seasons of reconciliation and rupture. Bianca, as Kanye's wife, entered that maelstrom and has become an object of projection, the mysterious new figure who both ignites fan curiosity and attracts intense scrutiny. So when Kim mirrors an element of Bianca's wardrobe sensibility, the reaction is rarely about fabric and pattern alone. It's about narrative real estate, identity claims, and the symbolic tug-of-war over an aesthetic associated with a very public family drama. The thing about Paris Fashion Week is that it amplifies. It is a pressure cooker for persona work. Designers, photographers, and publicists orchestrate moments where a single look can be engineered to trend for 72 hours. Kim has long understood the platform calculus. She built an empire on it. So whether the look was a wig and go, or a full aesthetic reboot, it landed hard. Multiple outlets documented the change and collected receipts. The pixie cut, the sheer Margiela top, the way archival pieces were staged like prophecies for lifestyle extensions. That triangulation, celebrity, designer, platform is where cultural capital converts to cash and where a style choice stops being private and starts being an industry signal. Now, be honest. Part of what fuels the public's hunger is the mythology around the players. Kim's brand has always balanced appeal and business acumen. She monetizes her own image. Bianca, conversely, plays more of a cipher, intentionally ambiguous, sometimes confrontational, and often photographed in ways that accentuate raw vulnerability or aggressive sensuality. Fans project intentions onto both women because the narrative demands villains and heroines. That projection is lazy, but also telling. Our culture wants neat stories about rivalry to consume between ads. The fallout, then, is less about style and more about storytelling mechanics. Who gets to be complex and who gets reduced to a costume? There's a performative feedback loop. Kim's wardrobe choices affect Skims' sales and brand partnerships. They also shape headlines that then amplify into the conversation economy. Bianca's wardrobe choices feed the Ye-sphere and the darker corners of Kanye's myth-making machine, which is not purely aesthetic. It's also political, familial, and lucrative. So when the two aesthetics converge, it's not stylistic gracelessness that's at stake. It's commercial rhythm, attention allocation, and the symbolic capital that follows. The stakes are less metaphysical than they appear. Image equals negotiation, and negotiation equals money and reputation. Dig deeper, and you find an ancestry of rivalries in pop culture. The ex versus new partner trope is everywhere. From Elizabeth Taylor and her husbands to modern celebrity cycles that feed on comparison culture. Social media turbocharges that rivalry into daily content, and outlets turn it into bite-sized outrage. Who wore it better becomes who owns the image. But here's the more interesting read. This isn't solely a feud. It's a conversation about who gets authorship over a style language. Does a look belong to the one who popularizes it, the one who monetizes it, or the one who wears it first on camera? Those questions are messy, and they tend to map very neatly onto power differentials. Meanwhile, both camps are playing chess. Kim is not just a star, she's a strategist. Her recent choices, from Skims campaigns to archival Margiela pics, show someone who's constantly calibrating between commerce and cultural capital. That she surfaced this Margiela piece in Paris, an environment where archive reverence and shock value live side by side, indicates calculated risk-taking. Bianca's choices, often more raw and less polished, function as counter-programming. They push against maximal gloss and insist on a kind of visual provocation that courts both fascination and censure. The difference in infrastructure, teams, budgets, and reputational firepower means that similar moves will land differently depending on who executes them. If we zoom out, this spat says something about the modern celebrity ecosystem. Image is the new headquarters. Controlling it means negotiating both ad campaigns and parasocial narratives. The families involved, the Kardashians and Wests, are institutions built on perception. Fights between them are never private. They are business moves, content sources, and source material for new product lines and interviews. That's the dark art of modern fame. Conflict sells, and anyone who's been in the Kardashian orbit knows that a headline can be leveraged across a dozen revenue channels. The spectacle becomes a balance sheet item. And yet, let's not strip the human element entirely. Comparisons and criticism are personal. Kim has spent half her adult life under a microscope, and rebounding into a sharper, edgier image could be a statement of self-determination as much as showmanship. Bianca, whose fashion choices have been framed as provocations, is navigating a different kind of scrutiny, one that seeks to define her in relation to the man she married and the ex he once loved. Both women are making choices that will be debated, maligned, and monetized. And both will be judged against different standards because the media and the public are invested in tidy narratives that rarely reflect messy reality. The public's reaction is instructive, too. Some fans cheered Kim's Margiela moment as a masterclass in archive dressing. Others saw a deliberate echo of Bianca's wardrobe and called it out. The internet, predictably, made memes and think pieces in equal measure. International outlets piled on with takes that ranged from analytical to outraged, and suddenly a fashion choice mutated into a cultural argument about taste, authenticity, and the politics of likeness. That cascade, photo to meme to think piece, is the life cycle of a modern celebrity moment, and it's engineered to maximize engagement at every turn. Historically, celebrity look battles have had consequences. Perceived mimicry can erode goodwill, foster online pile-ons, and even complicate brand deals. But it can also generate attention that translates into profit. The nuance lies in where the attention lands, on the clothing and artistry, or on interpersonal drama. For Kim, whose business interests are broad and lucrative, spinning fashion headlines into conversion is old hat. For Bianca, who is less monetarily embedded in mainstream fashion commerce, similar optics can calcify into caricature more quickly. The difference is both moral and material. This moment also speaks to the speed with which stylistic authorship is assumed and contested. Two women can wear similar things and occupy completely different narrative spaces depending on history, ownership, and fan allegiance. Kim wears a sheer tube top, and the story becomes a savvy brand pivot. Bianca wears it, and the story becomes scandalous. That double standard reveals how much context and the weight of celebrity biographies shape interpretation. If we want equitable conversation about creativity, we need better media habits and a willingness to interrogate why certain people get forgiven for reinvention while others are accused of copying. And there are darker undercurrents here. Gendered scrutiny, a hunger for spectacle, and the way social media punishes women who step outside narrowly defined aesthetic lanes. The internet's appetite for a neat story forces messy human behavior into digestible plots. The result is a cycle where reinvention is both necessary and liable to be policed, where creativity is filtered through the lens of ownership, and where women's bodies are battlegrounds for cultural meaning. That's the cultural cost of living as a spectacle. For the Kardashian empire, moments like this are manageable. They have PR machines, legal teams, and production budgets to reel a narrative back or lean into it. For Bianca, who exists in both the private orbit of Kanye and the more eccentric fringes of the Ye brand, an unwanted comparison can harden into public caricature. That imbalance creates the ethical question. Why do we set up people to be judged against each other when they're operating in different economies of fame? The answer, ugly as it is that we profit from the division. Now, let's bring in the latest ripples. Page 6 and fashion outlets cataloged Kim's Margiela moment and circled it back to Bianca's known wardrobe DNA, while TMZ led with side-by-side hair transformations that made the comparison impossible to ignore. Telegraphy, representing a different media ecosystem, amplified criticism and framed the comparison as a cultural misstep. Those sources, in combination, show how local coverage can become a global narrative. When Paris Fashion Week acts as the stage, a single outfit can travel the world and be reinterpreted by 1,000 editorial frames in less than a day. So what does this mean for celebrity image more broadly? For one, it proves that style remains a primary language for power. Dressing is speech. Fabric is rhetoric. In a world where headlines translate directly into clicks and clicks translate into millions, aesthetic choices are not frivolous. They're strategic. More troublingly, the episode shows how quickly women's fashion can be weaponized to tell ugly, simplistic stories about rivalry and appropriation, instead of more complex ones about homage, evolution, or the dialogic nature of style. We should be better readers of craft and less eager consumers of gossip. Here's a bolder claim. The frenzy reveals a gap in the public's literacy about fashion as craft. Too often, we reduce costume to personality and then read intent into texture. That's lazy and reductive. Designers like Glenn Martens at Margiela are making choices that riff on history and context. Celebrities interpret those choices through their own branding. The conversation should include designers and stylists as main actors, not just the faces who wear their clothes. But the media loves faces because faces are easier to monetize. You can object that this is all inside baseball celebrity culture, and you'd be right, partly. But inside that bubble is where broader cultural norms are normalized and contested. When an A-list woman is accused of copying another, that accusation crystallizes assumptions about originality, ownership, and female rivalry that seep into our broader cultural imagination. It's not just entertainment, it's a rehearsal for how we talk about women in public life. The stakes are subtle but real. Let's be honest about the stakes. There are real consequences for individuals when the internet decides someone is copying. Influencers lose deals, brands distance themselves, and personal reputations harden into caricature. The court of public opinion isn't a neutral arbiter. It's a marketplace with winners and losers. The winners get attention and money. The losers get a pile-on and a narrower public narrative. That dynamic should make us uncomfortable because it rewards spectacle over fairness. So what should we conclude? First, Kim's Margiela moment is both a savvy aesthetic choice and an inevitable headline generator. Second, that comparisons to Bianca say more about our hunger for simple stories than they do about deliberate sabotage. Third, this moment lays bare the structural ways fame privileges some narratives over others. Finally, the fashion industry itself, from designers to stylists to PR teams, has as much responsibility for this spectacle as the celebrities who wear the clothes. We are all complicit in turning private choices into public currency. If you want to watch the drama keep playing out, pay attention to the next moves. Will Kim double down and make this Pixie Plus sheer look her new era with a cascade of Skims promos and editorial spreads? Will Bianca respond with an even more theatrical stunt? Or will she let the aesthetics speak for themselves? Either choice will tell us how much of this is strategic signaling and how much is authentic expression. My money is on strategy. These are professionals who read the room and play it like a symphony conductor reading an audience. At the end of the day, the real conversation we should be having is about the rules we use to judge women who take risks in public. The comparison game is tired and, frankly, a little cruel. Two women can stake claims to similar aesthetics without being pitted against each other in the public square. But until the culture evolves past headline-first thinking, we can expect more of these moments. Polished pieces of theater masquerading as fashion choices, amplified by capitalism and our obsession with neat narratives. Expect the PR machines to go into overdrive. Every stylist will get a memo. Every photographer will angle for the exact frame that makes the comparison undeniable. And somewhere, a brand strategist will quietly brief a campaign built to harvest whatever heat this produces. This is how the industry eats itself, by turning friction into fuel. Headlines will splice the moment into bite-sized narratives that feed talk shows, Fashion Week roundups, and the influencer economy. Meanwhile, legal teams and brand partners will be whispering about risk, association, and inventory timing. It's not just about taste anymore. It's about timing, intellectual property, and who gets to monetize the aftershock. Finally, can we stop treating women in the public eye like competing chess pieces and start interrogating the systems that manufacture these contests? The entertainment economy incentivizes pitting female expression against itself because conflict scales clicks, but the consequence is predictable. Talent flattened into tropes, nuance erased for virality. If we want fewer manufactured wars and better cultural conversation, we need to demand reporting that centers craft, context, and the designers behind the clothes, not just the faces that sell them. Thoughts? Say them loudly, please. If you want more receipts, scroll through the articles we pulled from, as they do the work of documenting the looks and the reactions. Pay attention to how different outlets frame the same pixels. One calls it homage, another calls it mimicry. That contrast matters because it shows how storytelling collapses nuance into shareable verdicts. Thanks for listening. If you're into this kind of deep dive, hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell. Drop your hot take in the comments. Is Kim playing chess, or is she copying? Do we let the designers own the narrative, or are we forever doomed to fight over who owns a look? I'll be watching Paris and the timelines so you don't have to. See you next time.